Hello, hello, hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. Happy Friday. I am so happy to be here with you today. My name is Lee Felton, for just in case you haven't met me before. I'm the host of So You're Thinking About Being a Chief of Staff. And this is where we talk about all things Chief of Staff. And as you know, I approach the Chief of Staff role, which is this growing phenomena across the across the planet. It's one of those roles that has really taken shape, and so I am so excited to host this podcast where we talk about the chief of staff role. We get very clear on the chief of staff role and things that people who are either hiring for the role, partnering with the role, who are in the role, or even individuals who are interested in potentially transitioning over to an executive level chief of staff role. This is where we talk about all things chief of staff. So I always start with a hello from the audience. I love, as you know, I can't see you. And the only engagement that I have with the audience is through I am. So I would absolutely love it, as I do every other week. If you're there, just say hi. I just want to know that you hear me, that you're there. Where are you from? I just get people from all over the place, and I absolutely love, just seeing the diversity of people who show up to this podcast. So as you are hopefully getting ready to say hello to me, let me also ask another question. And so as you also know, when I'm finished with the podcast, I typically get dozens, if not more. I get dozens of emails, through LinkedIn and other places. People asking about the chief of staff role and wanting, personal coaching. And unfortunately, I don't do mentoring, that type of mentoring anymore, since consulting is my full-time job. So I have actually, I'm trying something out to see if it works for you all, where I am trying to offer a more personalized 1 hour workshop where it's just a very limited number of individuals who can attend, and we can have that one-on-one time where we, look at your particular situation. We drill down into your skills, your experiences, that alignment to the executive level chief of staff. And so I have my first workshop being offered on Monday. I have a few people who are planning to attend. I don't know if this is the type of venue, if that's the format that works for you. So my question this morning is, does that format work for you? So, or is this enough? Like, if I just focused on the podcast and given you this information, is that enough? Or, is it worth it for $40 to pay for doing a workshop? So I would absolutely love my question of today is a very selfish question, just because I want to tailor what I can offer to you. I want to tailor that for you. And if anybody is in the Chief link, please know that this is a LinkedIn Live event, and I've provided that in the discussion comments. And so if you could please log in through the LinkedIn Live event, that would be greatly appreciated. And if you have the link to Chief, if you can also put that link in there, it would be greatly appreciated, just because, it's good to have everybody in one place. So let's see, what do we have? We have people coming to say hello. What do we have? We have Gary from Houston, from Louisiana. I am in Meridian, Mississippi right now. And this is my, I call it my second home. This is, my family is from Jackson. And so I know all about the South, and I absolutely love the South. Good morning, Jesper from Seattle. And let's see here. Hello, I remember your leadership commerce. Oh, Jacqueline, thank you so much. Yes, I did lead the Department of Business Services at the Department of Commerce and for Washington State. So, Jacqueline, very nice to see that you've gotten up here. I'm signing up. Okay, oh, it's $49. Yeah, okay. $49. What's the difference? Anybody else out there just saying hello, hello, hello? If not, we will move on. Let's see. Anybody else want to say hi to me? Where are my people from Arizona? I know I typically get some Arizonians. I typically get, let me see, UK, Canada. It'd be nice to see that the folks are here. so we can just say hi. Okay. Well, as you are hopefully still saying hi or still answering that question, because I do want to know the answer. Is it, is this enough? Is this type of format, is this good enough for you? You can get all your questions answered, or is it worth it? Because if it is, in addition to the workshop on Monday, I see Jesper added the link there. I see Jesper added the link to the workshop for Monday. If that is good, then I'll have another one. But if this is good enough, believe me, I don't make income and stuff really from the workshops. I do my consulting on the side. So if this is good enough for you, then I will put my energy and focus in here, and that is fine. Hello from Mercer Island, Seattle area. I'm also from Seattle. Yes, Woodinville actually. And hello from New Jersey, New York, the East Coast, Connecticut. I'm trying to think, Jill. I don't remember ever seeing someone from Connecticut join. I think we had Israel last 2 weeks ago, which was just beautiful. It touched my heart to have even people, in other parts of the world, even where there's different things going on. In my heart to every family out there who's being affected by all of these wars and the negative energy that's surrounding. My heart goes out to everybody. So I sincerely appreciate you taking just a few minutes out of your day. I know even if you're not in a different location, just taking a minute out of your day to join me, to listen to me, to engage in this discussion with me, it is very, very appreciative, because we all have things that we can do. Okay, Guhar, nice to see you. Thanks so much for joining. Okay. So with all of that said, let's get down to business. And what is business today? So as you all know, I talk about being an executive level chief of staff. And what does it actually mean to be an executive level chief of staff? To me, an executive level chief of staff is one that is on par with your senior leadership team. You are a partner, you are a peer, you have a seat at the table. You're not just a catcher and an executioner. You are a decision maker, a driver, and owner. In addition to having accountability, even for areas that you have no direct reports, you still have that authority to go in, to drive, and to help move the business forward. And I make the joke when we talk about job descriptions for chief of staff. If you truly are an executive level chief of staff, and anywhere in that job description, it says calendar management, taking care of travel, that is not an executive level chief of staff. It still might be a chief of staff role. And they may be looking for someone because they can't have both an executive assistant and a chief of staff. And so they may be looking for someone who can overlap and do both, get paid for both. Don't take on a role like that without actually getting paid, because those are two different roles. But that I have never done calendar management. I have never done travel arrangements. That is not the best use of an executive skills. And so we do talk about the executive level chief of staff here. Even, there's just like any other role, executive assistants, there's lots of executive assistants that I've met who want to move into an executive level chief of staff role, which is completely fine, because there's so many journeys that can take you to this chief of staff role that I would say, who is anybody to tell you that you can't do it? So, there's lots of gaps that you might have to fill in terms of your skill set, but you can do that. So today, I am so excited to introduce and bring to the stage Deborah Boggs, who I met as I call her my chief sister, as I met through a group that I'm a part of. And she has just done an amazing job at helping people to explore, what does it mean to present yourself, to represent yourself as an executive. So Deborah, I'm going to let you take a minute just to say hi to everybody.
Thank you so much, Lee. It's great to see everyone. Really excited to be here. And I'm really looking forward to it. I would love to know in the chat too, where you all are in terms of, are you currently in a chief of staff role? Are you looking to transition into one? Are you in one and looking to transition to another? I'd love to kind of get an idea of who's out there and where you are in your career as well. Thank you so much for the invitation.
Oh, absolutely. And what I've learned in the past, we have we definitely get my audience is somewhat quiet. I will say that. And they know that I can, if they don't talk back to me, especially when I don't have a guest on, I can talk and talk and talk and talk. So I love it when they interrupt me and say, "Hey, Lee, what about this?" or "What about this?" Because this is their opportunity to get all of their questions answered. But yes, I think that's a beautiful question, Deborah, to the audience. Why are you here? Why do you tune in? I've seen anything from I'm actually interested in becoming a chief of staff, or I am a chief of staff, so just growing my skills. I want to hire. And so from a recruiter standpoint, from even executive standpoint, I want to hire a chief of staff. And of course, there's all of those individuals who as well, who thankfully, who are here to support and inspire and encourage my participation. So I do have some followers myself who join just to keep track of what's going on in my life. So I appreciate that sincerely as well. So Jill is looking to transition. She's currently consulting. We have a LinkedIn user who's an aspiring chief of staff. Danielle is searching for a chief of staff role currently. What else? Guhar is in a chief of staff role. And yes, we do. That's another one that's very important, Deborah. We get individuals who have recently taken on. So they were running operations, or even I've had people that were doing marketing in various things, moving from finance. They've taken on a chief of staff position, and that actual title and that role, which is now this catch-all, is new to them. Pooja, hi everyone from Cleveland. Nice to see you, Pooja. Aspiring chief of staff, looking to transition to a chief of staff. What else do we have? Looking to transition. Jacqueline is looking to transition. Government relations. So as she said, I potentially worked with her when I was in the Department of Commerce. So Office of Economic Development. I absolutely loved my role when I was in Washington State Commerce. LinkedIn user, Deborah Lee. So nice to see you. I'm here because I'm curious. And that is just fine too, right?
Yep. And I wanted to tell you all too, thanks for, I know you're in Mississippi right now, but thanks for everyone in the East Coast. I'm in the, what do we say, the extreme Northeast in Maine. So I'm on the coast of Maine up here near Portland.
What's the weather like?
I think we have different weather. It's about 45 and gray.
Okay. So we have a mixture of people, a couple of people who have just transitioned into a chief of staff role, a couple of people who are, or more than a couple, but a few people who are interested in pursuing this chief of staff role. And so one of your expertise is looking at your resume and how to formulate a resume that really demonstrates who you are in the executive power that you have. And then just like, other fellow, chief and other LinkedIn users, I'm sure we have a number of people here who are just curious.
Absolutely. And happy to talk about, what a resume should look like for a chief of staff. To give everyone a little bit of background on where I'm coming from with this, I launched and now run a firm, DNS Executive Career Management. And what we do is work with VP to board level leaders to prepare for and navigate their high level searches. So we're not a search firm. We don't do placements, but we're like the home stagers to make a luxury property look expensive before it goes on the market. And so in that work, we again work with executives going through their search, preparing for their searches. And a lot of times it's people who are looking to level up into that executive role. You've built a really great career. You've got a great background. Maybe, you've built your career through your, your reputation and promotions and getting recruited. And now you find yourself at a level where you have to take yourself to market for the first time. And you don't have to out yourself in the comments, but we find that a lot of people are still using the resumes they were using right out of college or right out of business school, right? You're just adding to it over the years. And that's not doing you any good when you get to that executive level, when you have to take yourself to market at that next level. And so what should that look like? And what we want to think about is, especially if you've done all these different things, and to get to a chief of staff role, you probably have done a lot of different things, right? Because you have to do a lot of different things in this new role. And so we want to really focus on the future, right? What are you capable and ready to do next, and not necessarily a list of everything you've ever done. And for a lot of you in this chief of staff space, I know someone in the comments is an office manager now, thinking about, how to level up, things like that, looking to level up into full-time chief of staff roles, things like that. The thing you want to think about is how you can communicate your leadership experience, because as Lee already said, you're going to have to lead through influence. You're going to have to lead, a lot of people that you don't necessarily have direct report over. And so how are you able to move the needle, offer, add value, work with a lot of stakeholders across a lot of different areas to move a project forward? And those are the kinds of things we're going to want to see in an executive level resume, showing that you have, decision making and, at least leadership through influence and C-level advising, and all of those pieces are going to be really important.
And Deborah, one of the things that I always say about an executive level chief of staff, although they may not be an expert in any particular line of business, an executive level chief of staff should be able to step into for temporary. So let's say we had one of the senior leadership team members go on leave or whatever. An executive level chief of staff should be able to step into any of the SLT. Okay, legal, that's a whole different ballgame. We'll put that to the side for now, right? But they should be able to step into any of the SLT roles for a temporary position, for a temporary period of time, including the CEO. How would you represent, just as you think about that, and we're talking executive level, that you would be able to, I would be able to right now at an organization, be able to step shortly into a CMO position, into a COO position, into, even the CFO position, just for a brief period of time, as long as you have a good team around you. How do you position that on your resume to say, I really am that executive partner for the CEO?
Right. I think that's a really great question. And that's where, in some roles, say legal, people want depth of experience, right? But in a chief of staff role, really it's the breadth of experience that's more important, and the ability to, be, a generalist in a lot of areas. We always say, don't be a generalist, be really specific. But in a chief of staff role, that's really impossible, right? And so I think it's a couple of things. It's highlighting that you have an understanding, or I love the term curiosity in here, curiosity about all the areas of the business. If you're looking to move into a chief of staff role at an organization you've already been at, then demonstrating how you've partnered with all of those other areas is helpful, because it shows that you already have these relationships. And the other side is really showing your ability to create relationships quickly, right? And your curiosity to work in partnership with the C-level leaders and all of the other functions. That way you can quickly come up to speed on what's going on in their area, what's most important, what are their priorities, so that if there's a maternity leave or they're out sick or something happens, you can step in and you have the relationships with the rest of the team, you have the trust with the rest of the team, and you have a high level understanding of at least their top level priorities to keep the ball moving. So those are the two important things,
and what about
relationships?
And so what about if people are, just like you said, they haven't dusted off their resume and they may not even be looking? And I always encourage people, even if you're not looking for a role, always keep your resume fresh. Take a look 100%. At it, at least once or twice a year. Just take a look at it. Keep it fresh. Keep it, representative of you. It's what I do. But how would you tell people, just in terms of a fresh new look? Because I've seen all types. I've seen PowerPoint resumes. I mean, I've seen all types of resumes these days. So what is your advice to people if they want to dust off their resume and they want to make it specifically an executive level resume? What advice do you have people on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a resume nerd. I could talk about resume format all day long. But the biggest difference in an executive resume is it's going to add more context and more of your career story than, say, those versions that you were using right outside of college, right? Where it's just like job title bullets, your name, job title bullets. An executive level resume is going to have a lot more context than that. And so what you're going to want is, you'll have your name at the top, certainly. And then right under it, you're going to add chief of staff or chief of staff candidate if you're looking to move into that, right? We want to immediately let people know who you are and what you're looking to do without an old school objective statement. But that is kind of setting the stage for, you are a qualified candidate for chief of staff roles. And then you're going to have a summary section. And that summary section is not going to be super long, shouldn't be longer than maybe 4 lines. It's just going to be a few sentences that is going to pull together your whole career and the pieces that make you uniquely equipped to carry out that role in the future. Again, it's not a list of everything you've ever done. So you're going to want to think about the most important things to a chief of staff role. If they don't have a job description, if your perfect job isn't out there yet, pull a few other chief of staff at the executive level job descriptions, see what's most important there. Make sure we're pulling those keywords and those skills in to really elevate your experience. And then the next, before you get into the experience sections, say maybe you had a chief of staff role before and it's not your most recent job, or you've had some high level employers in the past, maybe they fall to like page 2, you can do a career highlights section and have a few bullets of, career highlights or leadership impact or something. And you can say, delivered XYZ for company name, or delivered XYZ as chief of staff for company name, to really immediately draw the eye and the attention to you being an immediate candidate for that role that fits what they're looking for, right? So you can kind of drive the conversation and the narrative around your experience, especially if your most recent experience isn't something that you would necessarily want to lead with. And then from there, for each role, you're going to want to list the company name. And then if it's a company name that maybe people don't know, if you're at Google, or if you're, at some of these larger companies, or a really large company in your area, you don't need to list this. But if you're at a startup or a mid-sized company or a company that doesn't have nationwide recognition, you're going to want to add a little blurb, just a sentence long, doesn't have to be long, about the company, giving them context. And it's really, really important, because that way, when you list your accomplishments and the work that you did, people can understand apples to apples. They can't understand that if they don't know maybe how large the company was, who the clients were, what they do, where they're located or where they operate, things like that. And then 2 more, and then I'll stop. You're going to want a little summary. And if anyone can hear that, I have very aggressive crows. I don't live in a haunted house. I'm so sorry. They're just right outside. But you'll want a little blurb about the work that you do, right? Like just pulling it all together. What falls under your purview, who you report to, especially if it's at the C level, the maybe budget you've managed, team members you've managed, things like that, to give it context before you go into your accomplishments. And again, those bullets are going to be accomplishments. They are not going to be duties. They are not going to be responsibilities include. They are going to be how you drove the ball forward, how you moved the needle for the company.
And I think that's good advice, even good advice for me, as much as I look at my resume and update my resume, because as a consultant, I have my portfolio, which for me is my resume. I still have do's to do. This is what I did. This is what I did. It's like, you know what? How do you, I want to transform that to accomplishments. I think that's a great idea. What we get a lot of times, especially since the chief of staff role has only in the last year, or a couple of years, taken off. I mean, it has really taken off. And most of the executives that I know are saying, if you truly want to take advantage of being a visionary leader, you need to have that chief of staff who is that operational leader for you. So people who have had that operational background, who have operational excellence, and they've, really led these programs, not just as a project manager, but as a leader over all of these programs that need to connect together and, just like you said, build relationships and pull people in. How would you help people with their resumes who've never been a chief of staff, but they feel 2 days, not like they need to build up to being an executive level chief of staff, but they feel 2 days. Like there was somebody here that was a CMO and they want to transition to a chief of staff. How would you recommend them positioning on their resume or even on their LinkedIn page that they are ready for that executive level role?
Yeah, great question. Because you're right. It is definitely growing. And I talk to clients all the time who have maybe been in the CMO role or a COO role and are looking to make that shift over to a chief of staff role. And there's 2 things. Number 1 is really thinking about, okay, pulling some of those chief of staff job descriptions and then looking at what the skills are that are most important and really telling accomplishment stories that demonstrate those skills, right? Showing that you may not have had that title, but that you have done the things that are required in that role, or that you can demonstrate that you've done those things in an accomplishment focused way. The other piece is, I tell my clients this all the time, because part of what we do is the resume writing, LinkedIn profile, and the other part is job search strategy. How are you taking yourself to market? What does that look like? What does that process look like for you at the executive level? Because it's different. But what I say for people looking for chief of staff roles is that is highly focused on networking, because as a CEO, choosing a chief of staff is a very personal choice. Right? It's like, it's as personal as choosing your executive assistant, but on a much bigger scale, because they need all of the executive skills as well, right? But you also need someone that you want to work with every day. And so because of that, you're going to really want to focus on networking into an opportunity versus just getting stuck on online applications, because having a personal connection with the CEO is how you're really going to win that job. And that's going to help you overcome not necessarily having
just me. I have lost you. It could just be me.
Can you hear me?
Can everybody else hear Deborah? Can I get somebody to tell me if they can hear Deborah? Deborah, go ahead and talk, because I cannot hear you.
Oh, I don't know why. I'll mute and unmute and see what happens.
And if I can just get somebody to tell me if they can hear you, that would be great. But Deborah, if you can shake your head, you can hear me.
Yes. Yep.
And I can hear you. I know the things that you're saying is absolutely beautiful. You, for whatever reason, you just completely, everybody else can hear Deborah, but me.
Okay, great.
It figures. That's just the story of my life. I have these connection issues all of the time. Deborah, if you can, as I am fixing my connection issues, if you can, I'm going to talk. So who had the question? We can hear you both. Well, good, because I cannot hear. But who had the question? Kate had the question. So Kate, you asked the question, what would I speak more about the role? So I will come back after I fixed my sound, and I'll tell the group more about the chief of staff position. But if you can tell us, there's a lot of people like me who are not good at working. And just like you said, you're right. This is such a personal position that, and I always, when I get chief of staff roles, I'm applying just like everybody else, LinkedIn, and, it's not through these relationships. Do you have any advice that you give to people around networking and the best way to build that muscle if it's something that you don't have?
Absolutely. No problem. So there's a couple different ways, right? And I tell my executive candidates, you don't want to be applying online, because it's just going to, give you rejection after rejection after rejection. And that's not helpful for anyone's ego. And so a better use of your time is really, like we said, networking into these opportunities. And there's a few different ways to do it. It starts with getting really, really clear on your ideal role, right? So all of you know that a chief of staff role is what you want, but what are the companies? What companies are you uniquely equipped to serve, or do you want to serve? So if you think about size of the company, right, and location, if that matters, industry, maybe product or who they partner with, things like that. So it helps to start there, because once you have a really clear picture of what you're looking for, then the networking becomes easier. Because otherwise, we're just kind of flailing out there telling people we're looking for openings and we want to have virtual coffees with strangers, and you're kind of spinning your wheels. But if you get super clear to start with, then you can do two things. You can search by company first and really focus on networking into companies, right? So networking into, I love to use Crunchbase data to build lists of companies, and maybe there's a company you have in mind and it'll give you companies like it, things like that. And if you use the Crunchbase data, it's free, and it also gives you the contact information and LinkedIn profiles for the executives, so you can reach directly out to the CEO and make a pitch.
And would you advise that? It's like, hey, CEO, you don't know me. I'm just reaching out the blue. Here I am in all of my glory. You need me.
100%. I do. And you know what? It seems crazy, but there's a couple things you have to have before you do that. Make sure that your LinkedIn profile is really tight and is telling the story you want us to tell. And I want to talk to you all about your headshots. I don't know your headshots. I'm not critiquing you individually, but just know that a LinkedIn headshot is your first impression. It is exactly how you would walk into an interview. And so before you start making these bold reach outs to CEOs, you want to make sure that those things are tight. LinkedIn is ready to go. Your resume is ready to go. Your headshot looks like you would walk into an interview. So that's one way. For those of us that aren't necessarily.
When you reach out and say, hello, here I am, would you at that point add your LinkedIn site or add your resume, how would that conversation go?
Yeah, so there's a couple different ways you can do it. If you have their LinkedIn profile, which you typically would from Crunchbase, then I like to start on LinkedIn and send a connection request and say something like, I came across your company. I love the work you're doing in XYZ. I'd love to connect. And then send a message after they connect and say, thanks for connecting. I'm launching a search for a chief of staff role. And I really love the way your company is doing XYZ. I would love to help you meet your goals next year or whatever it is. I'd love to hear more about your goals, something like that. And then share your resume. So show interest in the company, show genuine interest in the company, make it a little personal, and that will get more attention. You don't want to look like one of those, oh, I ran across your profile and would like to connect. That always follows up with a sales pitch, right?
We know what those God. I'm learning that the hard way. It's like, okay, I connect with anybody who wants to connect, but all of a sudden I'm getting bombarded with, hey, Lee, you absolutely, no, I don't need it.
No, I don't. They say, what I heard someone refer to it as getting pitch slapped the other day. When you accept a connection request and they immediately pitch you, that's not we want to start a human conversation.
Yes.
So the other way to do this, if it seems really uncomfortable, is go where your audience is. Like, where are those people? Are they at startup events? What conferences are they going to? Where can you go to make human connections with people and spark up conversation in a way where you can get access to them, right? Are they at I love to go to charity events. I like to budget for it, right? And go to charity events that align with something I'm interested in anyway. But if it's like the events that are, an auction or something, a nice dinner, things like that. This is where you can meet people and get access to people that you typically can't in other ways if you're in the middle of the job search. So those are some more organic ways to meet people and start the conversation.
Deborah, we are out of time. And as usual, especially when we have somebody as engaging and interesting as yourself, we run out of time really quickly. I just want to take a moment for my audience and say thank you for everything that you've shared today. This has been an amazing conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for the invitation. I really enjoyed it.
Okay. So for everybody, thanks again for joining us for So You're Thinking About Being a Chief of Staff. Kate, I know you asked the question, and if there's other questions that you have, I do try to get to all of the questions on LinkedIn. So go ahead and still ask your questions. I try to get to all of the questions on LinkedIn today or through the weekend, so I can still answer your questions. But in terms of the Chief of Staff role, it depends on who you ask. I've been in the chief of staff realm for over 20 years. I was a chief of staff at Microsoft many, 20 years ago as one of their first chiefs of staff. And it's such a fulfilling role. It's one of those roles where it is what you and your executive leadership team make it. If you want to know specifics about the role, there's lots of things that we have in previous podcasts. You can go back and watch those podcasts. As most people here know, I also published a book called Unlocking Your Inner Chief of Staff. And as one of the reviewers on Amazon said, this is just a job description. That's exactly what it is. It's an executive coloring book that outlines if you want to be an executive level chief of staff, these are the things that you should consider, including your non-negotiables. So lots of great information out there. Happy to talk about that potentially on our next podcast in 2 weeks, where we can go into more detail if there's additional people who are new to this podcast and who need more information about what exactly does it mean to be a chief of staff. So happy to have those conversations. And again, sincerely appreciate you all for taking time out, for joining me, and for participating and engaging in this discussion. So I will see you again in 2 weeks. Until then, stay happy, stay blessed. Take care. Bye.